Today I'd like to talk to you about 5 common note-taking methods. We're just starting the school year off, and it's always a good thing to review those tools that you can use to make yourself more successful throughout the school year. So today I would like to take a quick opportunity to do that. Okay. This document that you're seeing here is actually from the Redlands University in California. This isn't my own creation, but they've done such a good job that I wanted to share these with you. Great note taking definitely takes some practice and takes some work. You've got to really hone your craft to it. And what works for one person isn't going to work for every person. And what works in one situation certainly won't work in other situations. So what I want to give you is a toolbox of note taking techniques and strategies that can help you be successful. You can look at these and hopefully take these out and apply these to your different classes and your different study areas. The first type of note-taking that I wanted to share with you is Cornell Notes. Now, it's named Cornell Notes after Cornell University, which is obviously an Ivy League school on the East Coast of the United States. Cornell Notes you take, and you can see the page is divided by a line right here. That line divides the page vertically as well as a horizontal line at the top. You can do like they've done here and do a page number if you're doing it from a book, or you could label the discussion or the date that you had it, or whatever that might be. Over here on this side, a lot of times you'll put main topics, bigger topics, keywords that you're going to then go on to after you've gone on this left side. When you go over to the right side, you're going to go more into depth on. Okay, this is a great method. It's a beautiful method. It's excellent for study because I can cover up one half of the page. I can look at maybe the keywords over here and say, okay, I know this about this keyword and this about this keyword and this about this keyword. And then I go over to this right side and say, well, yeah, I had it. I had it nailed, or maybe I need to focus more on this. Important ideas: when the instructor moves to the new topic, you go down to the next line. You could also use bullets and indentation to kind of help things. It's in kind of combining Cornell method with outlining, and it's effective. Also, underlining your text or circling text that's important is something that's valuable. One cool thing about these is if you aren't completely clear, you can write down something, leave it blank a little bit below, and then come back to it and fill it out after class, whether you ask questions later on or whatnot. It's great for reviewing and studying. It's a really effective method. Like I said, you cover up one half and go to the other half. It's simple and easy, fairly efficient to do. There may be some cases where this is not a good method, but in my opinion, this is the all-around best method that's out there for taking notes, and we'll employ this a lot in my class. The next one that I would direct you to is the outline method. Now, outline methods, we've probably seen these before. Outlining method is our classic I over here, the Roman numerals along the left-hand side, followed by the letters, followed by the small Roman numerals over here. And basically what we're doing is over here at this level 1, we're putting our broadest topics, and we're moving generally smaller and smaller to the point where we get to I's. We're looking at specific details. Okay, and we organize this and use this level of indentation and this level of numbering to help give us kind of a hierarchy of importance and a hierarchy of depth. It's not necessary to use Roman numerals for this. For example, I was just a dash guy. I would just use dashes and indentation. Indentation was the only thing that I would use, but you can do whatever you want, whatever works for you. Outlining is a difficult skill to take up, but once you've learned it, it's very, very worthwhile. It's a good skill to have for certainly writing papers, but also for studying as well. It's super organized. Is a beautiful thing. It shows good relationship between content and different concepts. It also reduces your editing because you can kind of focus on what the main points are. Some of the disadvantages you might find is that you have to really be on top of organization. You have to understand the structure of what you're talking about, or otherwise it's easy to get lost. It doesn't always necessarily show relationships by sequence well, and if the lecture moves at a quick pace, you may get left behind with outlining. But outlining is a really solid, good option. Another method that we could look at is the charting method. That's the third method we'll look at today. You set your paper up in columns and rows, label it with headings up here, and fill out the headings appropriately as they go. Okay. It helps us pull out the most relevant information, and that's why it's good. These headings up here, if I were to use this, I would use this in a specific case where maybe it applied to a history class, for example. If I can say what over here, where, when, and why. If I can answer those 4 questions, I'm probably going to be successful in history. So if I know what I'm looking at for out of specific lectures or specific teachers, then I would definitely try to employ this method. Advantage of it also reduces the amount of writing necessarily because you've already got these connections that are showing up across the top of the screen, and it is easier for review. Some of the disadvantage is sometimes it's hard to learn to use, especially in a situation where you're not 100% sure what you're looking for out of the lectures or what you're supposed to be focusing on for your tests. You need to kind of have a good idea of the content ahead of time, and that will be really helpful. It's great if you're tested on really factual information because this shows good relationships between things and not necessarily between things, but good, easy, simple, clean, and organized facts. If content is heavy and it's presented quickly, maybe a history course with lots of dates and people and events, this is a great way to use it. It also is a great way to maybe come back as a review method and make a chart for a class. That's one technique that you could definitely make use of. Let's go ahead and scroll down onto note-taking methods. Again, the next one we are going to look at mapping. Okay, mapping method is a great method to use. You provide yourself with a graphic representation of a concept. Now, this doesn't necessarily always have to be in this bubble word map type of thing where you got this and then everything branches out. You could do maybe Venn diagrams and different maps depending upon how the concepts relate within something. We'll use T-charts a lot to help map relationships or ideas in our class, for example. How this works, if you're using bubble charts, is you put the idea up here and then the sub-ideas down here, and you just work down the list. Okay, it does have to do a lot with relationships, and it's good. It helps you really differentiate what belongs to what and what fits where. So that's good, and it definitely makes you active while you're working on it. Some good advantages is also that it gives you kind of a visual representation of ideas and their relationships. Other things that are important is you can come back and edit your notes and maybe color code things, and it's fairly easy. Some disadvantages is you may really get stuck working down the line here, and you may not realize it until you've drawn 2 or 3 sticks down that stick down here actually belonged up here and should have been out here. So that is a struggle with this, and mapping method can work. It just needs to be tailored towards the right situation. The last method we're going to talk about as far as just straight note taking, and perhaps the least effectual of them, is that of the sentence method. Okay, the sentence method invites us to write basically every new thought, fact, or topic as a separate sentence. Now, it's good in the fact that it's better than writing a whole paragraph to navigate, and records most of the information. But the problem with it is you can end up writing your hand off depending upon who the professor is that's talking or teaching. One of the disadvantages also is that when you're going through this for study purposes, it's really hard to get a whole lot out of it. It's hard to edit with much preciseness because you've just got this long list of sentences. It's good when there's a ton of information and maybe you're not sure how things fit together in some cases, but realistically it's probably a little bit better to do an outlining method if you want to show the connections and relationships. The sentence method works in some instances. I, for example, will use it to come back and review things. I'll write things down in key point sentences and have maybe 10 key point sentences for a unit. That works, but for an hour-and-a-half lecture, it's not realistic to effectively use this. One other method that I would like to bring up to you today is that of text annotation, and I didn't produce this either. This is an online PDF, and I'm not sure where I was able to find it. But text annotation, in short, is taking the note or taking a text, go ahead and marking it up, okay, for your usage. Now, how you mark it up is going to depend, and what your system for marking up is going to depend upon what you're trying to get out of it. Are you trying to write a paper? Are you trying to observe a particular style? It just depends on what you're looking for. Okay. You can write summaries in the text margin, for example. You could list or number ideas out in the text margin, possibly sketch pictures and charts, predict and write possible text questions, mark puzzling or confusing concepts, as well as underline key concepts. The important thing about text annotation is you want to be really careful to not overmark. If you overmark, it's the same as not marking anything, because you're not able to discern what's important and what's not. It is a good way to improve your concentration while you're reading. Okay. However, it does take more time than simple reading to do correctly. It also helps your retention, is one of the big things. It assists you in getting ready for tests as well as hopefully prevent you from having to go reread things. So that's a good thing. When you're looking for annotation, it just depends on what you're looking for. These are a couple of ideas of things that you might be looking for, but it's not necessarily universal, depending upon what your purpose is in reading, and that's what you've got to define. Why am I reading this text? That is going to dictate how you annotate and what you're looking for. You can annotate a whole lot of stuff, and there's different ways. I'm not necessarily a huge proponent of this list here, but you can annotate in many different ways. But annotated texts are great to study from. Okay, you can just quickly cover it. You can cover the space. Now, in my mind, we'll do a lot of annotation in this class. There's definitely some techniques that can help, but you've got to really hone your annotation to your purpose and tie it into your purpose. How you do it is very much tied into what you're trying to get out of it.